Although this vid is on the terrible massacre in the Moscow metro massacre committed by female suicide bombers. Now, as mentioned in RT, the Russian Times news channel, this was done by Chechen terrorists, and that stems from both Islamic extremism, which is the unifying umbrella under which Caucasus Islamic groups fight, because they had to have a wider federation of terrorism against the Russian Federation. Now, this is not the first attack that has been carried out by these people. Indeed, in 2004, 51 people were killed in a similar attack on the Moscow metro. Now, at 8 o'clock on Monday, there was two coordinated attacks. One killed 37 people and the other killed 12 people. This was carried out specifically by female suicide bombers. And since the news mentioned this, I will now talk about the specific problem of indoctrination of women in terrorism. The reason why I was hesitant to talk about this was because of the problem of discussing about terrorism in the public sphere because of potential copycats. Now, because of this, there's been some previous studies. One was called "Shoot the Woman First" by a former intelligence agent and author who was a female herself. Now, why is it that terrorists use female suicide bombers, particularly in Afghanistan and Iraq? Because, of course, conceptions of threat, particularly by men, are considered in terms of the threat to them by other men, particularly in the masculine culture of military undertakings. Now, if you look traditionally at the role, especially in Roman times, of women, often they were the ones who were doing the killing in terms of the civil sphere, through poisoning and other things. I think we're all familiar with the Godfather movies where this was taken into like the modern sphere, where Michael Corleone's sister poisons Count Adebello in the opera scene, famous opera scene of Godfather. And this traditionally is why organised crime has particularly used women, because they are not seen as a threat. It's less obvious. This is often jokingly referred to, although it should be taken seriously, that women are more devious. This is not really the case, because of course, if you actually looked at the rates of hits done by different people, effectively there are as many female hit people as there are men. But let's look particularly in the case of insurgencies and terrorism. Fundamentally, the network of the underpinning of any terrorist or insurgency is the civilians. Often, particularly in Afghanistan, because of Islamic dress, women are used to carry weapons from place to place by the Mujahideen during the Soviet times, and probably still today. Also, women and children have been used by Islamic insurgency to infiltrate into areas because they'll not be noticed. Also, a recent Al-Jazeera documentary took place on the case of children being used by the Colombian FARC and also the right-wing narco terrorists who were supporting the Colombian government as lookouts, which is even more disturbing perhaps. Specifically the case of women in terrorism. Women are much more likely to be pressured into it, but it is also considered a paradox that women are harder to break mentally when physical pressure is not used. But they're also, once broken, their mind's broken, much more committed to a task. Therefore, it's the case, proven by psychology and through military conflicts, it's more likely that men will choose a rational path to fighting. And that's why men are particularly much better in the roles of soldiers and the more senior intelligence people who will not be used. Okay? It's not the case that women are victims of terrorism by being used by terrorists. It's simply that the psychology is less detached. Men can kill without necessarily feeling any emotion at all. And it's probably better that they do, because men's attachment to their community and their families, community orientated, okay? Men would feel a strong connection to their wives and their children. Women tend to kill out of revenge or kill things that they love. This has been proven through the case of terrorism. The people who were the Chechen terrorists were people who referred to themselves as Black Widows. In that case, they were not seeking to go out and do a job like a soldier would. Okay? In the British Army, they are taught that they are simply doing a job. Therefore, war is not a personal thing. It's simply taking aim, taking a target, and then moving on to the next. Whereas with the terrorism, it's even motivated by a religious doctrine or a political doctrine, which is essentially enclosed and not open to any rational discussion. Therefore, it's much more emotive, and that emotion is thus driven. Those women who did that terrorism were either pressured, their spirits broken, and thus they could be considered victims. But more than this, they referred to themselves as Black Widows. They'd all lost husbands, fathers, sons or sisters or daughters. And so that was the motivation. Now, in the sphere of war, I actually do believe it's immoral for women and children to be used as soldiers in the front line. In logistics, there are many women in the second line. There are many women who are probably much fitter than I am. Probably stronger because I at the moment am not training. There have also been very good women snipers, particularly on the Eastern Front in both the German and the Russian armies. But overall, do we really want to subject the fairer sex to the horrors of war? And so therefore this is not really a subject on feminism, but on reality. The reason why terrorist organisations use women is because they're more easily intimidated by actual physical violence from their own side, and they're also more politically committed because they invest their emotions in politics when they're divorced from their actual things that they should love, which is their family and their community. That's a genetic trait of gender and also psychology. Thanks for the talk and leave some comments.